I'm back and the world has finished generating. Now, as you can see here, it's focused on the main continent of our newly generated world, which looks like a likely place for us to start off. It's got a large mountain range in the middle. It's got a couple of large rivers flowing through it. Now, I know they look like rail tracks, and this is one of the flaws in using graphic sets in the game, in that because the game uses so few symbols, sometimes you can get things with the wrong symbols with the graphic set. So for example, in the plain tile set, rivers and tracks are both the same symbol. They're actually equal signs, I think. So when you replace them with images, the rivers also get the track image. But it's still clearer than the ASCII for people who haven't played. This here looks like a forest. Nope, this is sand dunes. Further north we have more mountain ranges along with some frozen areas, and going up, this is actually quite large, this landmass. Normally you get more kind of disparate landmasses when you generate a world. More northerly mountain area, and we have a desert around here. So just looking around for areas, but I think we are probably going to start somewhere on this continent. So we've accepted the world and it's now saving. When you have generated your world, you can then start a game on that world, and there's two game modes. There is Fortress mode, which as I've described, and is where we build a fortress in Dwarves and what we will be playing. There's also Adventure mode, where you play a single character in a RPG setting. It's a roguelike game, so there's permadeath and stuff like that, and I haven't actually played it very much myself, which is why we won't be playing it for this Let's Play. It's apparently quite good, but I've more interest in the Fortress mode myself. And here we go. So there's a new option to start playing. It doesn't let me pick world because this is the only world where I have not yet started the save game, and I pick Dwarf Fortress mode. Now this brings up this screen, which looks very confusing at first, but in effect there's three screens. There's the rightmost map, which is the world map of the whole thing, and if you look there you can see our continent in the center. There's a smaller island off to the bottom right. I think actually that one to the bottom right might be the continent we were looking at earlier. Okay, yeah, it is. So this is actually more southern than I thought, which means it's going to be quite warm if we do settle there. In the middle we have the region map, which shows still a fairly large area, but it's more zoomed in than the world map if you want to pick out features such as mountains. And on the right you have the local map, which will become your play area when you set up a save file. So for this Let's Play we're going to look for somewhere that's not too warm, that has a river and has plenty of trees. And in fact the area where I'm just happened to leave my map actually seems pretty decent. So we're going to pick somewhere on this local map. This green highlighted area is where our actual save file will be. So as you can see, compared to the size of the fortress, the world is huge, which is, as I said earlier, why it's mostly for adventure mode. Now I'm going to bump up the size of our starting area a little, and I'm going to put the river on the left hand side. And yes, that will do. Actually, I've just noticed two problems with this area. The first is it only has deep metals, which means it's going to take us quite a while to dig down to where we can find some metal. And the second is the temperature is hot, which means the water, potentially even the river, will dry up during the summer months. So we're actually going to go find somewhere else. I'm going to look around for a few areas in nice locations on the map. There's also an area finder to find what you want, but the main thing I usually use that for is finding somewhere without an aquifer, and since we've already turned those off, there's not a lot of point. Deep soil, deep metals. Here there's shallow metals. And here we have this area with like 4 rivers crossing, and shallow metals and deep metals. Yes, this seems like an interesting area to build our base. It might be a bad idea. There might be like 5 river crossings taking up the entire map, but we're going to try it out. So we're going to look at the biomes available. The first is the Mortified Hills. It's going to be warm, which means that we're not going to have things freezing, and we might still have some amount of, like, we might have little lakes drying up during the summer, but we won't have the river itself. It's a woodland, which means there's plenty of trees to chop down. There's moderate amount of vegetation, which means there's plenty of plants to gather early on, and the surroundings are wilderness, which means that we might get attacked by some hostile animals, but we're not going to have undead zombies or anything trying to murder us from outside. Now there's 3 biomes in here, as you can see. They're highlighted on the map as I look through them. They're all mostly the same. The conifer forest has slightly more wood, but we only have 1 tile of that in our area, so that's not going to affect much. And let us embark. Now it has 2 problems. It's telling us it's a large area, which may cause lag, but in this case my computer can handle a 5x5 area. It simply gives you that warning if you pick anything larger than the default. And the area has salt water, which means that our dwarves can't actually drink it. But that's fine, because in this game dwarves don't normally drink water, they normally drink beer. Now these are from the Lazy Noob pack, which is what I highly recommend anyone starting this game pick to install, because it allows just easy installation of the game and many of the tools you might use with it. But we're not going to use any of these custom starts. We're just going to click play now and use the default start. It's not the most optimal start, but it's sufficient, and I don't really like spending ages messing about with different combinations of dwarves and skills. So it's telling us that we have arrived. After a journey from the mountain homes, we've arrived into the forbidden wilderness. The rest of this is all mostly the same, but it has picked a name for a fort. It's called Romance Lashes, which is a rather unusual name, but it will do. We're also going to check out, before we actually go into the game, our Stone Sense overview, just while we're here. Now this is basically a 3D overviewer for the world. So as you can see, there's our dwarves. They brought a few animals with them, and they have their wagon with their starting supplies. That's all you get to start off. You build everything else yourself by digging stuff out. There is one of the rivers here flowing in this direction, and actually in a rather unusual turn, let's zoom, it flows into a waterfall, and the other rivers are lower down. So that's actually quite a nice bit of scenery. Don't normally get waterfalls at World Gen like that. It does mean some of our dwarves, if they fall in, they'll probably drown because they can't swim up waterfalls, but you can't have everything your way. And let's have a look around. There's a couple of lakes, if you want to call them that. One of the other rivers, which also flows into a waterfall, goes down the same amount of Z levels. And there's the edge of our map. Now, Stone Sense is quite a nice tool for having a look at your map, but you can't actually control the game through it because it's a third-party tool. So to actually play the game, you have to use Dwarf Fortress itself. So now game is starting. We're going to get rid of the larger map and we're going to move the controls to the side here. And here's what our map looks like. Actually, we're going to hide them all together for now. Here's what our map looks like in game. There is the river flowing in from the side, and there it is flowing down in the waterfall shown. There is the other river flowing in from the north. There's our dwarves and their wagon, and if we go down here we can see the lower level of water that they're all flowing into. So we're going to have another look around here just to see if there's any convenient high points on the landscape to dig into for a fortress, but it looks like we're in a fairly flat area. Well, there is that, but it's very close to the edge of the map, so I think we're just going to dig down for a fort. So we're going to find our dwarves again, chip down here, and we're going to start putting them to work. We get the controls back up on screen because, especially for some of the more uncommon options, it's quite hard to remember them. And we're going to start off. We're going to use the downward stairway option here, just anywhere really, and that's going to take us the stairs down into the ground where we can start building our fortress. Dwarf fortress is kind of unusual when it comes to stairs because you have to build the up part of the stairs, as in the bottom half, separately from the down part of the stairs, which is the top half. Otherwise your dwarves cannot go both up and down the stairs, because obviously they could go down if there was only top half of stairs, but they couldn't climb back up. There's also the up down stairs, which is what I mostly use, which does both, and it may as well just be the only option. It's kind of weird having them both there, but that's just the way the game is. So we've dug well, we've told them to dig underground, and we'll dig a hallway. So that's one of our dwarves. When we unpause the game, it's going to go off and do that. The next thing we need is some wood to start building our basic workshops. And we'll just deforest this area here, and we'll get another dwarf to harvest plants in the same area. So that is 3 of our dwarves occupied, and for the moment that's all we can do. So we're going to unpause the game and let them start off fetching our basic resources. As you can see, one of our dwarves is quite quickly digging through the dirt here to start this basic hallway, and another one is starting to chop down trees. Now we should have a log at this stage, so the first thing nope, we don't. So they're going to start building there, and we're going to look at Dwarf Therapist for a moment. Over here. Now we're going to connect it to the game now that the game is running. This is what Dwarf Therapist looks like. It's not the most entertaining looking program, but it shows the jobs that our dwarves are assigned to. So we're actually going to pause the game while we look through that. Now, first job, mining. You can see this dwarf here is assigned to mine, although he's not actually doing anything at the moment because he's already finished mining what we told him to. There's a few other jobs, but the ones we're looking for now is the ones that our dwarves are actually doing. There is Minkut Tirticus over here, that probably pronounced that horribly, and he is cutting wood, so he is getting the trees in the area we told him to deforest. And there is this person here who is fishing. We hadn't actually told him to do that, but obviously since he was told to fish and there's a river nearby, that's what he did. In that case, there should be another of our dwarves gathering plants. And the problem we have here is the same dwarf who is told to cut down the trees is also the only dwarf who we've told to actually gather plants. So let's find what they do. This dwarf, he's a miner and he's okay at that, so we're going to leave him at it. This dwarf, he's a gem cutter and jeweler, and we don't really have much need for jewellery at this stage of the game, So we're going to assign him to plant gathering. I'm going to take our tree cutter off the job. And once that's done, we're going to commit the changes and we're going to let it start. So back to Dwarf Fortress now. If we look down here, we've seen our nice hallway cut out, and we're going to start building areas to store stuff. So we're just going to make these big squares for now. There's 1, there's 2, 3, and 4. And just cut doorways in for each of them. So now our other dwarf is going to come back down here and start mining. For the moment, since we're just watching, we will watch him on Stone Sense because it's nicer to look at. In the future, we'll have more active things to do, but for here, we're just basically getting the basics ready. Meanwhile, our dwarves start chopping down some trees, so we need to assign a stockpile for the wood. So once he clears out the first of these rooms, we're going to set it so that all the wood that our dwarves gather get put into a pile in this large square room. If you've noticed, the order the dwarves actually mine things in is somewhat erratic, which is a problem when you tell them to do lots of mining jobs at once, because they might go and dig out a square in one room, and as you see here, he's left that room finished and unfinished and decided he wants to do other things. So now if we go back to the game, we're going to designate a stockpile for wood. Now you don't need a huge amount of wood later in the game, so we're not going to put a huge pile, but about there should do. The other thing we're going to put a stockpile for inside straight away is food. You can get animals in this game who will run into your base and steal food off you, so it's handiest to have them there. Now if you've noticed, all our other dwarves have started running around and they're picking up the wood that has been harvested, along with the plants that have been gathered, and they're bringing them down to our new stockpiles. Since we built up some wood, I am going to start building a carpenter's workshop, just so we can start getting some basic items that we need ready, and a mason's workshop. When they're finished carrying items down to our stockpile, the doors will come and build these, but at the moment you can see there's still plenty running in. One thing to notice about the food stockpile while they're storing things in there is that some of the items are put in barrels and some of them are put in loose. Barrels basically allow you to store more items in one tile. They're a bit like a chest in Minecraft, but you have to build them for your dwarves. So at the moment we have less barrels than we have stuff to put in them. We can build more barrels out of wood later when our carpenter's workshop is ready, and that will help us use up less space in the stockpile. So as you can see here, one of the dwarves is building our carpenter's workshop. Now that that is finished, we are going to make a few things. First of all, since we don't have enough barrels, we're going to build a couple of barrels. Next, once that's done, we're going to build some beds. Our mason's workshop, on the other hand, is still waiting to be finished, and that lets us build things out of stone. We don't have any yet because we haven't started digging that deep. We're still in surface soil. But we will soon enough. While we're at it, we're going to designate a few more piles. Furniture. Our food pile is actually full, so we're going to make that bigger. We need one for finished goods that's reasonably large, because that's what our fortress will sell to elves and anyone else to get money. Animal, weapons, and armor can all go beside each other here. They don't need to be particularly big, and neither does cloth at this stage of the game, because you won't have much of it, and by the time you do, you will have built more storage space. And ammo can go here, gems can go here, they can actually go all the way here, and yes, that will do. So now all our dwarves are going to start moving more stuff to our stockpiles, apart from the ones mining and making barrels and beds. Going to bring up stone sense again to see our fortress coming along, and the doors rushing in and out to put stuff in the stockpiles. While they do that, we're also going to have a look on the surface. As you can see here, though they're not terribly obvious in stone sense, the workshops that we built are visible. There's still plenty of animals and idle dwarves hanging around our caravan. Excuse me. Because at the moment we don't have any great hole for them to hang around in, so they just hang around there when they're not doing anything. And the taller area, which we ignored earlier, we'll go over and have a look. And as you can see, it's not even a hill, it's just one high. So it's just kind of a bit of uneven terrain more than anywhere we could build a fortress. And since I presume you don't want to stare at dwarves move stuff into stockpiles for the next 5 minutes, I am going to cut the video off here, and this will be the end of the first episode of Dwarf Fortress. Thanks for watching.